I don't think I know a single family that hasn't been touched by addiction. And for those of us who also have a story of recovery, it is a gift worth commemorating. The Pittsburgh Recovery Walk celebrates the many roads to recovery from addiction and all those who travel them. This year's walk is Saturday, September 7th. It kicks off right across from the Heinz History Center at 9 a.m. and heads downtown and back. It's free. They would love to know that you're coming, but registration is not required. There's going to be music, speakers, kids' activities, food trucks, a resource fair, dogs are welcome, plus the whole route is handicap accessible. Learn more at pghrecoverywalk.org because every recovery story matters. Liberty Magic is magic, up close and sometimes very personal. They have an intimate, speakeasy-style performance space, and they just announced their new lineup for this year's season. Miguel Munoz will be there starting in October. Miguel is a circus artist and world champion of magic, and Nick Defott will take the stage in November. Nick is known for an offbeat sense of humor and some jaw-dropping stunts. It's all at Liberty Magic in the Cultural District. Get your tickets at trustarts.org/magic before they disappear. Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, we're kicking off a long Labor Day weekend with local union history, long airport lines, and another presidential visit. Plus, there are updates on the Trump rally shooting in Butler. We finally know what happened to the poor Pittsburgh-made Peregrine lander that launched and literally burned up back in January. And we have thoughts about all those lottery winners who, for whatever reason, aren't claiming their money. It's August 30th, the Friday News Roundup. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. I'm with CityCast Mallory Falk and Sophia Lowe, and we are just about to get started with our own long weekend. I'm so excited. Are Yins doing anything fun for Labor Day?
I am planning on one last hurrah at the Highland Park pool.
Finally.
No. I've made it. I've been there this summer.
Okay,
but
good.
This is the last chance before, our city's public pools close for the season. So
Yeah.
I want one last swim there.
What about you, Sophia?
I am actually going to be marching in the Labor Day parade with my partner. It's my first time going to Pittsburgh's.
Ooh, have fun, Sophia.
Yeah. I've just got family stuff afoot, so nothing fancy. But I'm excited for you, Sophia, and some fun things to share, too. So I thought we could kick things off today with maybe just a teeny history lesson. Not that Yins need it, but maybe our audience would love it. Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania have really deep roots in organized labor. So the first union ever born was across the state. I did not know this. It's the Federal Society of Cordwainers. Do you know what those are?
I do not.
I didn't either. Shoemakers, apparently,
Oh.
cordwainers. They were founded in 1794, so we were barely a country. And here, the Homestead Steel Strike in 1892 had like a huge impact on how people viewed relationships between labor and management. It's sometimes called the birthplace of the modern labor movement. But of course, even today, we are surrounded by people trying to negotiate fair wages and benefits with their companies here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, nurses at West Penn Hospital just authorized a strike last week, and then Frick Museum employees voted to unionize just this week.
And then there's our coffee shops, our reporter friends at WESA and WYEP, the Carnegie Library workers, of course, the Post-Gazette workers, who seem to now be the nation's longest work stoppage as it approaches 2 years. There's just so many folks talking about unionizing and trying to make their workplace a better place to be.
Absolutely. And I think that's all going to make for a really interesting backdrop for this year's big parade downtown. That's on Labor Day, the Monday. I'm not fully sure what to expect there.
I mean, Sophia, I think you should maybe expect a sitting U.S. president if these news reports are to be believed.
Oh, I didn't realize Joe Biden might be marching. I know he marched in 2022. I know he's going to be in the area, but is he definitely coming to the parade again?
Well, not definitely. As we're recording this, it's still TBD.
Okay.
Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, the official Democratic nominee, have confirmed that they're campaigning here. It's actually going to be their first joint appearance since she officially became the nominee. But they haven't confirmed yet how or when they will be campaigning. Penn Live says Harris is starting the day in Detroit and then joining Biden here. So
Okay.
I don't know, maybe the president marches and then she comes later. We'll see what ends up happening.
Yeah, WESA mentioned that Biden's attended Labor Day events here in Pittsburgh 4 times over the last 15 years.
So many.
I know. And of course, he launched his 2020 run at a Teamsters Hall here in Pittsburgh, too. Local union leadership seem very happy to have him again. Darren Kelly, he's the highest ranking labor person in our area, said that, quote, "It'll truly be a Labor Day to remember."
And he also said we have the biggest Labor Day parade in the country. Don't we also claim that about our St. Patrick's Day parade? Do we just like to say that we have big things?
It might be true for this one. I don't know. I'd wager there's more competition nationally for St. Patty's, but I'm guessing.
True.
Well, while we're talking about the candidates, the Republicans have also been in our area. Vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance was in Erie this week, and former President Donald Trump is actually going to be in Johnstown today.
An update, by the way, actually, if you've been following the investigation into the Trump rally shooting in Butler, the FBI is saying that Butler was a, quote, target of opportunity, end quote. The guy from Bethel Park who did it, he had been searching around the internet for info on the RNC and the DNC, Trump and Biden, and landed on Trump's event and the farm show grounds. They still say they don't have a real motive and that they found a, quote, mixture of ideologies in his online accounts.
The FBI has released a bunch of stuff about all of this, like photos, body cam footage. There's a timeline of Secret Service actions, and local Republican Mike Kelly is leading an inquiry into all of this.
Yeah, one thing is for sure, the candidate visits are going to keep coming, but I'm sure all of this is having a big impact on the security protocols that they are bringing with them every time they're here.
Yeah, so we know Air Force One will be here on Monday, and it's actually going to be a really busy time in general at the Pittsburgh airport. If you are traveling through Pittsburgh International this weekend, you should plan accordingly because officials say all those record-breaking crowds and long lines we got around the 4th of July will be back this holiday weekend.
That's actually really surprising to me. I know it's a long weekend and everything, but I feel like 4th of July is a better time to travel because I know a lot of people have more than one day off, and that's peak beach time.
I don't know, Sophia, for non-parents or like people who aren't in college, I feel like this is like the last hurrah of summer, you know?
You're just describing me.
And a big wedding weekend.
Oh, okay. I forgot about the weddings. For me, I just want it to be fall. I'm done traveling. Give me cozy times and blankets and bed.
I mean, we're close. We're just not quite there yet. The airport authority says the numbers are probably going to peak today, like the crowds at the airport. But travelers should expect the airport to be crowded on Monday, too. I have so much heart for anybody who is there on the same day as any presidential visits. Like there's just so much extra protocol that goes into it.
Yeah, I was scrolling through the airport Twitter account and they posted some holiday weekend travel tips. They said 4 to 7 a.m. is the busiest travel time. So if you're flying then, you should plan to arrive 2.5 to 3 hours early. That's if you're checking a bag and you don't have TSA pre-check. Sounds familiar. This is what they were advising earlier this summer too. And then if you have pre-check and you're not checking a bag, you only need to arrive 2 hours early. So convenient. Then they also included a reminder that you can reserve parking in advance. I don't know, do either of you have any hacks for getting through the airport as quickly and efficiently as possible?
Oh, absolutely not. I am the wrong person to ask. I refuse to pay for pre-check and I hate airports, so I show up as late as possible.
And that's worked out okay for you all this time?
Yeah, I've never missed a flight.
Okay.
I mean, I've missed several flights, but it's made me like a little more gun shy, I think. I will say reserving parking in advance will save you money, but not time. Like it doesn't save you a spot somewhere. You will still be circling the parking lot like a little lost ant.
I didn't realize that.
They're just delusional if they think people appreciate that tip. It doesn't save time.
Interesting. Well, if any listeners out there are looking to travel, maybe during a less crowded weekend, if you're not like Sophia and planning to spend the foreseeable future snuggled up in
Rotting.
bed,
Like a leaf.
perfect. We talked to a travel expert earlier this summer about how to find cheap flights out of Pittsburgh. He had so many great tips and tricks.
Totally.
We will drop a link in our show notes, and then you can start dreaming about your next big vacation, I guess after you survive this one, if you are flying out of Pitt this weekend. Best of luck.
Whether it's going to school, to the grocery store, or crossing a bridge to get to work, we all need an efficient way to get from A to B. The Airport Corridor Transportation Association, aka ACTA, wants to make that journey a little easier for us. The Ride ACTA shuttle connects riders from the IKEA Superstop over in Robinson to over 275 businesses, including Settlers Ridge, the mall at Robinson, and the Homewood Suites by the mall. Plus, they have an app, Ride ACTA. ACTA is committed to accessible, affordable, and sustainable travel solutions. The buses themselves are very cute, and their whole process is smooth, efficient, and it will keep you away from a steering wheel on Parkway West traffic. The whole idea is honestly genius, so it makes sense that they've offered nearly 850,000 rides in the last 15 years. Check it out for yourself at actapgh.org. That's actapgh.org. Well, let's keep our conversation in the air. Now we know why the Peregrine lander died back in January. Mallory, I feel like this whole spacecraft saga, lived and died while you were on leave. Did you catch any of this as it was happening?
I did not. I have probably said on the show before that my deepest fear is the concept of outer space. So when I was on parental leave and I didn't have to professionally follow the news, I just noped right out of the story.
Fair enough.
Well, it all started for us with Sophia.
Yeah, because I did a deep dive into our region's past and present in space exploration.
And you did so good.
Involved. Oh, thank you. So we were pretty involved in the Apollo missions in the 1960s, and then I was keeping up with Peregrine, this huge project by a Pittsburgh-based company, Astrobotic. So Peregrine was a lunar lander, so it was supposed to, land on the moon. Lots of other companies were involved, and the launch was scheduled for right after Christmas.
But then it got delayed for weather.
So it got a little New Year's launch. It took off on January 8th, and the launch went successful. Everything looked really good for the first few hours.
Yeah, for the first few hours. There was this whole saga of space nerds, I feel like, following this on Twitter. And Astrobotic was posting real-time, very detailed updates on its progress and what was happening in its feed. But within hours of launch, there were a bunch of issues, and it just kept getting darker and darker. It took a lot of time to diagnose it and assess how these initial problems would impact the mission. It did not go well.
Yeah, the biggest problem was a fuel leak. So Peregrine made it to, quote, moon distance, but it never actually touched down on the surface.
Yeah, Astrobotic posted this very poetic, sad update that said, quote, although we are approaching moon distance, the moon won't be there, end quote.
Aw, that's really heartbreaking. I mean, all of this just confirms for me that space travel, space exploration, bad ideas. But I understand why space nerds would be invested in this journey.
And we should say, too, it wasn't manned. So I think we were all just sort of personifying this little, space robot thing it was on a good journey.
Not manned, but there are humans stuck in space right now. So my point stands.
It remains relevant. And there were tons, dozens and dozens of folks that work here in Pittsburgh that were working on this thing round the clock. So it did feel like the city had a stake in the game,
Yeah, so naturally, we here on the team also got really invested too. Peregrine, little space guy, not actually little. This thing was quite large.
Yeah, it was pretty big, actually.
But it did have all these tiny pieces of Pittsburgh on board because Peregrine was just the vessel. It was carrying a bunch of stuff that would have done other things on the moon's surface. But unfortunately, none of that got to happen.
Yeah, so Peregrine ultimately burned up in Earth's atmosphere on January 18th. And this week, we finally found out why the whole thing went awry.
Yeah, there were a bunch of problems, but there was specifically this one problem with this one pressure control valve in the propulsion system. TechCrunch had an explanation that felt more straightforward to me, a non-space scientist. So basically, a valve opened up, too much helium got into a tank, the tank burst, and that valve couldn't be sealed back up.
Yeah, and this whole mission, TechCrunch points out in the headline, is $108 million that did not work out because...
So much money.
Think about what that could have funded.
Yeah, so I guess the project originally had an outside contractor working on that system, but they ran into supply chain issues because of the pandemic. So Astrobotic did some of the propulsion work in-house. They had tech issues. Then they worked with another supplier to get the valves that eventually were part of the design.
So I guess in the future, they might want to consider working with other companies. Like, is there a next step to all of this?
Nothing with Peregrine. Alas, Peregrine is no more. But Astrobotic has another lander, Griffin. It's part of NASA's Artemis moon mission. Launch dates change for everything all the time. But right now, Griffin is supposed to head off at the end of 2025.
So Astrobotic's taking what they've learned from this experience with Peregrine and improving things for Griffin. For example, there's going to be a new design for the pressure control valves. This will hopefully create a better seal. And there's going to be, quote, multiple dissimilar, end quote, valves.
Redundancy.
And I think normal people words, that means one broken valve doesn't mean the whole mission needs to end.
No, that's exactly what it means. I mean, even when we're recording our podcast, we do it in multiple ways so that if anything breaks, we're not in a pickle, you know? I know that they do that too. It's just, I hate that this is how this one shook out because of one broken thing.
Yeah, that's really tough. I'm sure a lot of people who had been working on this project for years were really disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, I personally hate Twitter now, but I'm really hoping that Astrobotic remains committed to how it updated folks. They were just so great in that weird way of social media. It really felt like people all over the world, and certainly here in Pittsburgh, were watching like this one cool thing and sort of rooting for it, and then also collectively mourning it when it turns out it wasn't going to go well. And the updates themselves were just so, I don't know, clinical, but also very upbeat. Like Peregrine was going to die, and Astrobotic posted about how this like one unsuccessful mission was still an opportunity to learn and improve. Like it was just exactly the kind of distraction I felt like I needed to kick off 2024.
Well, if all of this has gotten you excited about space activities, you're braver than I am. But we actually have a recommendation for you in Tuesday's podcast.
Well, this is a space activity you can do from the ground here on Earth.
True.
So you don't have to face your fear of going into outer space. It's in our guide to September in Pittsburgh. Be on the lookout for that next week.
Yeah, and we'll drop a link to our podcast from late last year about Pittsburgh's history and actually future with space research. That'll be in our show notes. So last up, before we head out for the weekend, Sophia, what have you been following lately?
Earlier this week, I saw a piece in KDKA about how 3 winning Powerball lottery tickets are about to expire, but no one is claiming the money.
That's
the
nuts.
wildest thing about this to me is that one of these tickets is worth $1 million.
Whoa.
The other 2 are $100K and $150K, which is still like a huge chunk of cash. But who is out there turning down $1 million?
I mean, I'm not surprised that like people might lose a ticket or just have never checked it or whatever, but it does blow my mind that somebody could potentially have it and just have not gone to get it. Like they're procrastinating this long. You only have a year to claim it.
Okay, but the thing is, when I first saw this story, I actually thought these would-be lottery winners were smart not to claim the money, because I've just heard all of these stories. I've just heard all these stories about how winning the lottery destroys people's lives.
I think $1 million could do a lot to improve my life.
Same.
I'm sure lots of people immediately blow all their money on like yachts and airplanes and maybe go bankrupt. But I am built different. I am smarter. I would claim that prize. I would do great things with it.
Great things like improve our lives personally.
Okay, but Sophia, it's not just people being irresponsible with their money, although that's definitely part of it. And, you know, this might be for the big winners, not just your, you know, lowly 1 million or whatever. But I think it's about what winning the lottery brings out in the people around you. I went down this little wormhole a while ago, reading stories about people whose lives were destroyed after winning the lottery, because I'm a healthy person who spends my time doing healthy things. And there were just a surprising number of stories where someone's friend or family member either attempted to rob and kill them or did actually rob and
What?
kill them. And, that's on the extreme end. But there are just also tons of stories where people say winning the lottery was the worst thing that ever happened to them and fundamentally changed their relationships with all of the people around them.
Mallory, this is a good reminder that you are also a Lifetime Movie Network person. I forget that.
Nobody
until
else
you say
goes
stuff
down
like
does
this.
these deep dives. You can't tell me you've never done a weird deep dive.
Oh, I love a Wikipedia black hole, but I think we go in very different directions on
No,
ours.
I don't do my deep dives into murder. Okay, this feels like maybe a bigger problem than just very extreme lifestyle creep.
Okay, but the good news, I guess, is that in the course of fact-checking myself for this segment, I found this Forbes article that kind of debunked this idea about the lottery ruining people's lives. It said, the really tragic stories end up getting a lot of coverage, but those are the minority. There have actually been 2 studies in the past few years that found winning the lottery did improve people's, overall satisfaction with their lives.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing is, though, those studies looked at people in Germany and Sweden, and so I don't know if that holds true with people in the U.S. And I wonder how much this all relates to whether you live somewhere that you can claim your prize anonymously, which is not really an option here in Pennsylvania.
I feel like we should never be compared to any Nordic country. It's never going to be fair. But yeah, to that anonymous piece, I went scrolling through past Powerball winners. And just a reminder, there are a bunch of ways to play the lottery, the big lottery, but Powerball is one of them. It's the one that you get the big jackpots and stuff. And people claim their winnings often with names of groups or trusts, even here in Pennsylvania. So I'm betting this is one of those Pennsylvania moments where the information is technically public and out there. It maybe takes extra effort on people's part if they want to find it, or, if you're claiming it and you want to put at least one layer of protection between yourself and someone randomly Googling for this.
Right. So it seems like an anonymous option would be a good thing, a way to claim your money without worrying that, someone who sat behind you in first grade won't start harassing you for the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the argument for keeping it public is to show that the lottery is being run honestly, that, Gus the groundhog isn't just hooking up his family members or something. But it does seem like forcing people to go public if they win is a recipe for setting, more people up for failure.
Well, just to add a fun fact to all this, I was looking back at Pennsylvania's relative success in Powerball history. Again, this is just big jackpot money. But for a while, we had more winners than any other state, by far. I did a story about this a while back. So the first 14 years we were in the Powerball system, we collectively won 17 jackpots. The closest other states were Indiana and Missouri, and they had 11 winners each. So that's a big difference to me.
So what are my odds for the Powerball right now?
Well, according to the Powerball, they are currently 1 in 292.2 million. So, if you have one and you just haven't claimed a ticket, doesn't seem like it's a thing that's likely to happen twice. But I did check the Powerball system more recently. There are more states that play now than in those early years. But Pennsylvania is not doing so good. We've only had 2 jackpots actually in the last 9 years. Other states have way more. California has 8, Florida, New York, Jersey, they all have 6. We're kind of falling behind.
Well, I hope those people come forward. If not, I'm going to move back to New Jersey and try my luck there.
Truly, the odds look better.
I do like that the rules say that any unclaimed money will just stay in the state's lottery fund and go toward programming for older folks. That seems like a good use for it. Maybe these lottery winners are just good Samaritans who want the older folks to get their programming.
Nobody is that good of a Samaritan.
I don't know why they'd buy a ticket in the first place.
I do wonder if the store that sold the ticket still gets their cut, even if no one comes forward to claim it. If I ever knew this, I forgot it. But if you're the store that sells a ticket, you get money for that as an incentive, which I think is kind of neat.
You get incentives?
Yeah. There was just an announcement about a new jackpot ticket being sold here in Allegheny County at a pizza place. So the jackpot for the player was worth $213.8 million. But the store that sold it, they get $100,000.
Huh. Wow.
Well, before we go, besides dreaming about how you would spend your lottery winnings, what will you all be thinking about heading into the weekend?
So the Olympics ended a few weeks ago, and I think we can all agree that one of the internet stars of the Olympics was for sure Pommel Horse Guy, aka Steven Nedorosik, who has a little PA connection. He went to Penn State. Anyway, Steven is going to be on the next season of Dancing with the Stars. He made this announcement on Good Morning America. I want you to guess what kind of like little dance he did on TV.
I'm going to go either something super classic like Foxtrot or something super new, but not like flossing.
Yeah, I don't know why ballroom was the first thing that came to mind. He doesn't give off ballroom vibes, but for that reason alone, I would like that.
Well, I'm sure we'll get to see him do all kinds of stuff on TV, but for Good Morning America, he did a little breakdancing, which like actually makes a lot of sense because like Pommel Horse.
Yeah, he can be on his hands. Good for him.
Anyway, the 33rd season of Dancing with the Stars is premiering on September 17th if you want to watch him. And according to Us Weekly, Steven's in LA for filming now, and he brought his cat with him. Let the cat dance. Mallory, what are you thinking about?
Sophia, everything about that story was perfectly designed for you. It like hits all of your beats.
It really does.
So I am thinking about these big proposed changes to Pittsburgh public schools. We talked about this on the show last week. Consultants have recommended closing 16 schools and consolidating a bunch more. The district's considering the plan right now, and they're going to vote on it later. We talked about the proposal on the show with Jillian Forstat from WESA and Ledger Mystery from Public Source right after the proposal came out. And at that point, they were crowdsourcing questions from parents and students and community members. And so this week, they dropped this really great interview with the consultants answering some of those questions. I would highly recommend checking it out this weekend if you're interested. They talk about things like why they suggest going back to having standalone middle schools instead of K-8 schools, how they'd respond to concerns that some students will have to travel way further for school if this plan goes through. And if this is something you feel fired up about, the article also includes dates, times, and locations for upcoming sessions where members of the public can give feedback on the plan. There's in-person sessions on September 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and then a virtual one on September 11th. So you can find more information in that article. And again, we'll have it in our show notes.
Yeah, Mallory, are you still planning on going to one of those yourself?
Yeah, I'd like to try to make it to one so that I can then report back on the show. So I will keep you all posted.
I mean, also just so you can know as a human, but I appreciate the impulse to share what you hear. Mine is always a fun addition to September. So our regional asset district, they call themselves RAD. They just announced their fall lineup for free stuff.
Yay, free.
So yeah, for real. If you're not familiar with it, RAD is this like special arm of local government. They can collect and distribute taxes in the form of grants. So for like arts and culture and recreation spaces all over the region. And they do this thing called RAD Days, where all kinds of cultural institutions are open for free. You can get free tickets. There's just a ton of events. The website is a teeny bit clunky to go through from day to day to day, but there's a lot there. You should really check it out. All of this runs September 7th through October 6th.
And before we go, just a reminder that we will be off for Labor Day on Monday. We hope that all of you have a really great long weekend.
Bye.
That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. Our music is by Benji. Mallory Falk is our executive producer. Sophia Lowe, Lizzie Goldsmith, Selena C.A. Reynolds, and Zoe Culkin produced the show. Francesca DeBecco writes our newsletter, and I am your host, Megan Harris. We will be back on Tuesday with more news from around the city. Have a great long weekend, everyone. So the Powerball thing where you can claim your money through groups or trusts. Some of the names of them are very funny. I'm going to read a few to you. 100 Miracles from Wisconsin. Missouri Lucky 13. Pennsylvania's 22 Postal Workers. That's the whole name. And one from New Mexico, Mallory. Roswell Fun Havers.
Ooh.
I think I know what they're going to do with their money.
There's some more that are just funny, like Pennsylvania, SEPTA 48. I like that they're just like, can you imagine if 48 people from SEPTA just all quit at the same time because they won the lottery?
Maybe that would finally mean like big fixes to our transportation system.
I think it would mean a lot of hiring to Philly's transportation system.